Welcome, members. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our Artisan Showcase, Jewels from the Bay. My name is Megan McCauley. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Membership at the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. I'm so excited to share this evening with some familiar faces that you may recognize from our museum stores, along with two new faces, our special guests this evening. This evening, we will be meeting with jewelry designer Stacey King, founder of Lulu Designs, and Mashka, founder of Mashka. Tonight's program will include a Q&A with Stacey and Mashka, moderated by Stuart Hatta, our Director of Retail Operations. Stuart is one of those familiar faces I mentioned earlier. He has been with the Fine Arts Museums for 16 years and is the mind behind the wonderful merchandise that our stores sell. Rose Burke, our merchandise manager, has been with the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco for 15 years. Founded by designer Stacey King, Lulu Designs creates forever jewelry in Mill Valley, California. Lulu's team of bench jewelers work to create original castings alongside sophisticated pieces that showcase the power of precious metals and gemstones. Materials are sustainably sourced, and each modern heirloom is designed and handcrafted to allow the life of the metals and stones to shine through. Mashka began her career in jewelry after moving to New York City from Siberia 25 years ago. Her original plan to pursue a dream as a singer and musician changed when she discovered her passion for jewelry. While working in retail management, buying, and merchandising for 12 years, Mashka eventually started making jewelry herself. When her designs amassed attention by colleagues in the industry, she set out to pursue jewelry full-time. I'm so excited to hear from these people this evening, and I'm sure you are too. So I'd like to hand things off to Stacey King of Lulu Designs. Enjoy.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome and the lovely introduction, Megan. I really appreciate it and love having you guys all take a little view inside our studio. We have something fun planned for you today. Christina, who is my right hand and our creative director and our lead bench jeweler extraordinaire in the studio, is going to be giving you a little play-by-play on one of our beautiful new earrings called the Haley. And you're going to get to be able to see how it's made and be a part of the magic. So coming up is Christina.
Hi guys, I'm Christina. I'm the creative director here at Lulu Designs. I'm currently working on a few different styles that we're making for the DeYoung Museum. And I just wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek into a day at Lulu. So I'm currently working on a few different earring styles. The museum loves labradorite just as much as we do. These styles will be available online and in their gallery store. Here we have our henna earrings, our Glen earrings, these cute little hoops. And then right now I'm working on our style called the Haley earring. Here it's with moonstone, but we are making them with these gorgeous labradorite stones. So we hand form every link that you see in this earring to get it to this beautiful marquise shape. I'm going to first cut my pieces of wire. Next, I use this round mandrel to form it. Like this. And then, last but not least, we want it to have that beautiful marquise hoop. And this one has a layer of gold fill and another inner layer of sterling silver, which we'll be oxidizing to get it to that nice black color. Now that all of our marquise hoops are ready to be joined, there's always something magical about watching metal melt. It's quick, but there it is. So everything's been soldered, so now we're ready to make this bright silver into the oxidized black. We are using this solution, a sulfur solution, in some hot water. A little goes a long way. And this you can see the color starting to turn. And once it gets dark enough, you can kind of pull it out of the water to see if it's the color we want. And looks like we are good to go. Once the color is where we want, it comes out with sort of this matte finish, and we want them to be bright and shiny. So we are going to use our tumbler. I'm actually going to throw the gold-filled ones in there too, so those get nice and shined up. Close this up. This is a great machine. Hard to get a shine the way we want without it. And there you go. So while our marquee hoops are in the tumbler, the last step is to get our labradorites prepped to be hung on the earring. I'm using a short piece of wire and just creating this triangular bail at the top, like that. But my favorite part I want to show you is how beautiful these labradorites are. Each one has its own unique flash of color. And it's just like each stone has its own story to tell. So now the moment we've all been waiting for, we get to build these pieces into our final product. So we're going to do one gold fill, one of the oxidized sterling silver hoops, and then one of these labradorites. All go on there and fall really nicely into each other. And there you go, our Haley earring in mixed metal.
Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, we have a long history together.
Well, we've loved working with you. So, it sort of leads me to my first question for you. So what first led you in the direction of making jewelry?
Well, as I mentioned before, I moved to San Francisco when I was about 20, and I went to San Francisco State and was a fine arts major. I had an art history and ceramics emphasis. I thought always I would kind of, be an art history teacher. And then when I discovered that my love for the actual process of making art, I became immersed in ceramics. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm actually formally trained as a ceramicist. I studied glaze chemistry, and I really, now looking back at it, I'm quite surprised that I'm actually a full-on metalsmith, and I don't do anything with ceramics. For about 8 to 10 years, I did ceramics and had my own studio and sold it kind of casually, but not really formally like I have my business now. And what led me into jewelry is I actually got pregnant fairly early for today's standard when I was about 26, 27, as I was 27. And as I got bigger and bigger, I couldn't work on the wheel anymore. And I still had this unbelievable desire to create art. And so I became just sort of a lover and interested in jewelry. And I became very curious about how jewelry is made. So I just kind of started doing it on my own as a hobby. And the more and more I delved into the materials and the process, I just soaked up everything that I could learn on my own and became kind of self-taught. So it was just kind of more not being able to do ceramics, that just hungry for the process of making art that led me into jewelry.
Right. That's great. So tell us, what inspires your creativity when you're designing a new piece or collection of jewelry?
So I think, as you can kind of see from this first image of these two pieces that we're showcasing at the museum, it's all about kind of the materials that inspire the actual finished product. And it really mirrors my experience in life, which when I'm not in the studio working on new pieces, I spend a lot of times outdoors. I live in Mill Valley and I spent a lot of time hiking. So I'm very, very involved with nature on a regular basis, and it really soaks into me on a cellular level. And so when I'm working with the materials, I kind of like spread them out on my workbench, and it's the actual materials that kind of form themselves while I'm playing around with them. So it's like a lot of process oriented pieces that yield these results. So like, as you saw in the video with Christina, like our Haley earrings here on the left-hand side, I love this marquee shape. I've always, whether it's in architecture or like in a leaf shape or in nature, I love that part of the gemstone. And I really like to, like in this piece, for example, we love the metal and we like to pick up the colors of the stones and kind of do this reflective process of the stones and the metal kind of working together in a really cohesive way. So as you can see, like it, you know, I'm very sensitive to spatial organization of materials. And I think that is definitely comes from my background of ceramics, and my studying of art history is spatial awareness. And so I'm very sensitive to space and color and metal and weight and how it all plays together. And I think that these Haley earrings are an excellent example of that appreciation.
Yep, they're beautiful.
So, yeah, it's the process, you know, that dictates where I never really know, you know, what is going to be the final result. And there's a lot of things that don't make it to the collection that are like, oh, that turned out all wrong. But the ones that do make it are a reflection of that sensitivity.
That's good. What are your favorite materials to use?
Well, as reflective in both, in all of the pieces we have at the museum and the pieces that we have in our collection we love gemstones. I have always, you know, for years and years and years been a gemstone fanatic, and my collection of gemstones is extensive from the many years of going to gem shows. And now after all of these years of working with gemstone materials, I work directly with our stone cutters who are in India. I've actually been to India twice and worked directly with the factories on the cutting of the stones. So now we are at the level where we can design any gemstone shape we want and we have it cut for us. And so I like the play of gemstones and metal. I've gotten more and more into casting and design work with our bronze collection, but at the sort of heart and soul of the Lulu Designs roots are our love of gemstones. Like in this slide, you'll see we have these two rings. We've got our classic Monterey ring, which is this beautiful square labradorite piece. And I think what's really great about labradorite, everybody loves labradorite, is each piece is different. This is what I love about gemstones, is each piece is different. So people have different reactions to the gemstones, and people feel like they love the fact that it is a natural stone and that each piece is its own one of a kind. And it can then be kind of carried on as a treasure or an heirloom or a gift. And people get very attached to their labradorite and their gemstones. And it's just that love and light that people feel when they're interacting with the gemstones, and they feel the kind of magnetic energy that is really rewarding as an artist, knowing that it brings people such happiness and beauty.
Okay, so one last question for you. What do you like? What do you like about working with museum stores?
Having this sense of awe, and was the reason that I majored in art history and then did my minor in ceramics. This sense of awe of art that has been created for generations since mankind began. This idea of this common thread that brings people together is our art and the preservation of the art. And just the whole thought of our art being under the same roof as some of the DeYoung's finest collections of American artists, of contemporary artists, of textile artists. There's just this energy when you walk in the museum. If you've been to the museum before, I could go there over and over and look at the permanent collections over and over again, and knowing that just that this little bit of jewelry that we made is sitting in the case in this beautiful hall of fine arts with the moving collections that come in and out of that museum, knowing that the people that are so drawn to coming to the museum from really all over the world then go into the gift shop and get to see what we have to add. It's when I first started working with you guys, I cried. I mean, I literally cried because it was like just, I love art. And I think that, you know, in today's uncertain world, it's like the one common thread that crosses cultural lines, it crosses racial lines, it crosses political lines, it brings people together and always has. And so that, I think that sense of union and bringing people together in celebration of beauty in the world, to be a part of that and to be part of the museum, who does such a good job of it. And of course, you and Stuart and your incredible team, that is just like, it doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't feel like I would have the same sense of accomplishment and reward as I do by working with the museum. I just like it really, it's an honor for me, honestly.
Thank you, Stacy. We really appreciate it. We love working with you too. So it's a really great team effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you, Stacy, for sharing this story. It's wonderful to hear this. It's amazing to hear how our stories echo a little bit, and how we share this special love for the museum. I'm quite thrilled to be here. It's been a long and very, very fulfilling relationship for me, probably 9 years, I want to say, since I've met Rose and Stuart. And the museum also holds a very special place in my personal life. We are there almost every weekend with my kids. My kids are growing up there, basically. And I just love being part of this. Thank you very much for inviting me and making me part of this series. So our studio is based in San Francisco. We're in the heart of North Beach on the corner of Grant and Green. That's where all the magic happens. All the jewelry is designed and created. We're lucky to have a little showroom in front of our store. And we weren't able to do a video tour, but I prepared a couple of images. This is our front showroom in North Beach. We have our full collection, all of one-of-a-kind pieces there, and it's just kind of fun for us. It's light, it's airy, it's inspiring, it's fun to be there, and this is where our little mothership, we call this, and this is right behind that gray wall is our studio. There's 2 floors there, and that's where we all sit and create things on a daily basis. Here is another snapshot of studio, and this is us. We also have 2 more places in Ghirardelli Square in Monterey, but this is where really all the jewelry is created.
Great, thanks. Mashka, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Having you. So just a few questions for you. So what first led you in the direction of making jewelry?
Well, it's, I have to say, it's the void, the creativity void and the chance. It's the combination of 2. You know, when I was growing up in Russia as a teenager, I was always surrounded by art and stage performance. I was a part of a youth theater myself for a long time. That's how I first came to the United States with tours. I played music for 11 years. I made my own clothing throughout my entire teenage years. And when I came to the United States, I actually came here to pursue a career of an opera singer. When I got to New York, not many people know that, yes. But when I got to New York, it's such that's why New York is New York. It has so many opportunities and attracts so many talented people. And frankly, I had a bit of a self-esteem crash and decided to follow my father's advice and chose something more safe, and then decide if I want to sing or not. So I applied and got accepted to a business program, which I got my MBA eventually. And as a side, I got a retail job to help support myself. And right away, I pretty much started making windows and doing displays in the store. And that was fun because I missed that. And I was exposed to jewelry and all these pretty things. I really couldn't afford many of them. So I made something. I decided to make something for myself. I went to 37th Street, got myself a bunch of pearls, got some silk. I knew somebody who kind of knew how to make jewelry, so they taught me what to do. And I self-taught, like I kind of play around and tried different things. Some worked out. And then the manager of the store where I worked, she complimented me on the necklace that I was wearing. And I said, I made it. She's like, oh my God, bring some. I mean, let's try to sell it. Maybe you'll make some extra money. So I got all excited about that. I went and got more pearls, got more silk. I made a few pieces, 4 or 5. They sold right away. And then Holly said, bring some more. Come on. So I started improvising and expanding this little collection. And the rest is history. Then I realized that it just fills me up. This is fun and I love it. Yeah. And just kind of fills in that void.
That's great. So what inspires your creativity when designing a new piece or collection?
They say that some people see life black and white. I think that I see life through jewelry. Really everything and anything inspires me. I think I walk on the streets and I see things through jewelry, really. It could be a lot of things. Like sometimes, and I have some pictures to show. For example, Chrysler Building became a beginning of a big Art Deco inspired collection. I turned it upside down and here it was. We still sell it. It's very popular. It's quite old. It's from my New York days. But really, nature inspires me quite a bit. I mean, I'm very connected with everything. I mean, with the textures, with the patterns, with the lines, with the dimensions and combinations, colors, I mean, everything. So I like flowers. This is something on pictures and things that were born on my trips to Monterey, for example. And of course, I turn everything upside down to make sure that it hangs. And this is an example of Hawaiian opihi shells that I have been collecting for years. And, at the end, I never look to really mimic and copy a flower or something. It's just really, it's the details that I pick up and try to translate or interpret. And the final result of this collection, we called it spooled because it ended up looking like it's a thick wire that's spooled around circles. But really the inspiration came from the apihi shells. And I think you can see it when you see it side by side. It's quite, it's quite obvious, I think, where it came from. Sometimes it's when I cook. Here's that garlic that was the start of this cage necklace that we also have been selling for a really long time. Or a broken shell on the beach right there. I mean, just the lines of this, the curvature, the way it was sitting, the deconstruction of this just looked so perfect to me. And on the right, there's sea kelp from, I took this picture at Carmel. And I don't know if there is such a thing as a perfect sea kelp. In my opinion, there is. This is an example. Just the proportions of it, the form, the texture, the root of this that became a bale. I've used this particular picture, this element over and over. On the right, there is this collection is probably from 6-7 years ago. And on the left, I've used this again for texture and again, the shape a few years ago. So it's just kind of a piece of nature that keeps on inspiring me. And I keep coming back to this. In general, I think a lot of elements I kind of keep coming back and reworking. This leaf right here is something I found on my deck one morning, and it just looked so beautiful. First, it was a shape. I used it for a shape. Then later, a few years later, I used it for a texture, and you can see the circle and pebble texture on the earrings. And then actually, that was the last reincarnation, but the bracelet below is one of our most popular lily pad pieces. This became a huge collection for me as well. So on the right, you can see how this one photograph, one little leaf that I couldn't even hold in my possession. It's really the photograph that started so many different things in my kind of creative journey. And yeah.
I can see that. Currently, we have a really gorgeous new collection from you that's with a lot of pearls and black onyx. Can you tell us about a little bit about that collection?
I'd love to, yes. So going back to the previous, to the inspiration part, lava has been a huge drive, a creative force in my life. I was lucky enough to be in Hawaii maybe 1997 when the volcano on Big Island was erupting, and I was lucky to come really close to lava and just see this beautiful, graceful mass, powerful force to flow around. And it was the most memorable experience that I don't think I will ever forget. But the beauty of lava, the way it freezes, the way it shines, it captured me forever. So ever since then, I kind of started trying to repeat, to mimic the flow of that mass. And it started with these rings underneath the picture. I started trying to kind of show the fluidity, to kind of show the gravity. So I started playing around with the lines, and then eventually we moved on to pearls. And then a few years back, at the gem show, I found these beautiful Japanese Akoya pearls that kind of reminded me of lava again. And then I made these electroformed gold beads to mimic the shape of the Baroque pearls, and it became a really, really successful collection. But later, I made a pilgrimage a couple of years ago to Hawaii again when the volcano was erupting. And this time, I was after the color and the patterns that lava creates. And the collection that you have now has really, the final result has nothing to do with lava, of course. It's a holiday collection. It's happy, it's bright, it's gold, black, and pearl. So, but you can see when you look at these pictures, you can see, so for example, on the right, the cap on top of the onyx, that's really just, I was trying to show how the metal kind of hugs the stone or the lava stone. And on the left, I was trying to repeat the swirls of the lava and how it just kind of brings everything inside and consumes everything, these fire circles. So that was the inspiration behind this collection, actually.
Okay, so last question. What is your favorite piece of jewelry that you've designed before, and why?
I have many.
Yeah.
Usually it's the new
narrow down. Yeah.
Usually it's the new things that excite me until I do a new thing. But really, I mean, I'm known sort of for the pod collection. Yeah. And I think that's really one of my definitely favorite pieces. And it was also a big beginning for me in terms of different other directions that I took. And I still use it almost daily in every single design, including the collection that you have right now. And I wanted to share a little story of how pods were born, because many people think that they're pea pods. They're not. Again, when I was in Hawaii once, a lot of my inspiration comes from Hawaiian Islands. So I found these in Maui. I found these Banksia pods. I think it's an Australian tree that they use a lot for crafts. And I was fascinated by the pods and the texture and the pattern that the little seeds were creating. So I already had them holding on and like looking at them every single day. And then on the same trip, we went to the beach and I found these oleander seed pods. Usually you see oleander blooming, you don't see the seed pods that often, but here they were. It was that time of the year. So I picked up some from the ground and we proceed to the beach. And I always look for shells. I always look for treasures. So I started using these seed pods as little containers to sort my treasures. Upiki went here. And for example, Upiki went here, broken corals went there. And eventually as they started filling up, I started loving how they looked together, the patterns that the pods themselves created when they were filled up with different kinds of ocean treasures. And right next to me were these Banksia seed pods that I was showing you before, which kind of also echoed this the patterns that I was laying out. And boom, we had this vision of these pod bangles. And this, at the bottom of the screen, you see this picture of the very first pod selection. They were also very neutral, just kind of mimicking the colors of the shells that I found on the beach that day. And eventually it became all colorful. I mean, we sell pods now with probably 70 different semi-precious stones and stone combinations, and like I said, it was a beginning of everything for me in many ways.
Beautiful. Well, thank you.
Hello, I'm Stuart Hatta, Director of Retail Operations, and I'm thrilled to be here today with all of you. Mashka and Stacy, it was wonderful learning more about your beautiful jewelry and the processes that create your collections. And it was great to learn more about you both. I find that we both have commonalities Stacy, I'm a graduate of San Francisco State University. And Mashka, I'm originally from Hawaii. So I can definitely relate to all of your beautiful inspirations from the islands. We have some questions that our members have pre-submitted for you. And I'd love to start asking you both some of these questions. I think our first question is very timely and relevant to all of us. How has COVID-19 affected your business? And Stacy, let's start with you.
Well, I think it would be best to focus on the positives of it. During the time that we were shut down for 3 months, no one came to work except for me. I live walking distance from my studio, which has been such a blessing. So I got the time, I felt like I kind of got to return to my roots with, me being the only one here. I wasn't going to just sit home and do nothing. I got on the bench and started digging through the stones that I've collected for the last 20 years and started to pull out. I had kind of, and I'm sure Mashka, you can relate, there's so many stones that I have that where I don't have very many left, just enough for like that rainy day that I'll make just a limited collection or limited production. And I started creating a bunch of these one-of-a-kind earrings with like tourmaline and opal and sapphire and some beautiful gemstone cuts that you don't see anymore. And so I think that's been the most rewarding and positive part of COVID for me personally, was going into that rainy day stash of gems and saying, okay, it's time for you to have a life. It's time for you to be made into something beautiful. There's no time like the present. I'm not going to put off, using these gemstones for that special day or special occasion. So I think that I could go on and on about the difficulties, and there have been many and many challenges, but I would say that has been that was the best part, having that 3 months to be back on the bench without any time frame, making things that I normally wouldn't make because it doesn't matter. I'm not getting paid by the hour. I could just sit there on my workbench here and just make whatever I want. If it took 2-3 hours and it didn't turn out great, well, so what? Doesn't matter. I've got nothing but time on my hands. So just really gaining an appreciation of time and being in the moment and just like being free, to be in the process again. And that kind of time when, I started making jewelry, and I'm sure again, Mashka, you can relate. It was a very innocent time. It was just like, it doesn't matter because I didn't start this business because I thought I was going to go into business. I just did it to fill that creative void, as you were saying, Mashka. Like it brought me back to the roots of nothing really mattering but the art itself. So I would say that, like, from a positive perspective, it's yielded some really beautiful, cool pieces that I love and feel very proud of.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. And Mashka, how about you?
This gave me an opportunity to focus, to kind of just think of the future, to think what I love, to look at my previous work, to analyze what I do just for business part or to kind of complete the collection, or what really brings me joy. And I have, and it kind of was cleansing in a way. I got rid of a lot of thoughts and pollution in my head, and I'm really looking forward to the new collections that we have planned. And it's going to be, I wish the circumstances were better, but overall, I think it was a very, very great opportunity to go deep inside and kind of go back to the roots.
Yeah, I think it's great that both of you expressed the silver lining during this uncertain period, and I appreciate you sharing those thoughts. So Stacy, what advice would you have for aspiring jewelry artists?
I would say the most important part is do what you love. If you can find out early on what part of the jewelry making process you're really, really good at, do that and do it well. And understand that it takes years and years and practice and practice and practice to become good at things. You don't just, wake up one day and go, I'm going to be a jewelry designer, or I'm going to be a ceramicist, or I'm going to be a painter. You have to be in it for the long run. It is a marathon. It is not a race. So I think it's really important to find what you're good at and do it as well as you can. And I know, Mashka, I think you've been doing this for the same amount of time that I have. I feel so fortunate that there was not really computers. Okay, now I'm showing my age. There was not the internet. There was nothing. So when I was doing jewelry, when I started making jewelry, I didn't know what anybody was doing at all. I didn't look at what anybody was doing. I was just immersed in the materials and the process and nature. I think we have that, being elderly jewelry designers, Mashka, we have that benefit of starting from this purest perspective. And now with Instagram and with Facebook and social media, it is really can be very damaging to your creative process. And I think you need to, as much as you can, get rid of the noise, get rid of the distractions. Don't compare yourself. Like, as much as you possibly can, find that time when you're working on your art to not look at what other people are doing. Number one, you're going to keep your authenticity real, and be true to yourself and not be trying to do what somebody else is doing. And I think it can be very damaging to your own evolution as an artist to you can be inspired by what other people are doing, but when you start getting into, well, how can I do that and make it look like that? Don't do that. Find that love of the process and perfect it in your own right, and stay off. I know it's hard to do because I stay off social media. It can really be damaging to your self-esteem and your process, and just get into the craft. That's the best, I guess, advice I could give.
I'd really like to thank the audience for submitting your questions, and I want to apologize if we can't get to all of them, but we have time for just one more question, and it's a great one. Let's start with you, Stacy. Looking to the future, what are you most excited about in the jewelry industry?
I think, oh gosh, that's hard. I think that at least for myself personally, Christina and I have been working on more fine jewelry and more one of a kinds, and really not being afraid to take those risks with the more expensive materials being gold. So I would say that, having that courage to move forward with pieces that are more involved and more time consuming, realizing that it doesn't always have to be about creating something that takes the least amount of time and that's rushed, and just really creating a collection that is much smaller and much more thoughtful, and focusing, again, the advice that I gave to other jewelers on what you're good at. And I think that, since everything has quieted down, for myself personally, I have decided to kind of put the kibosh on buying more raw stone materials, realizing that, I'm sure you get this one, that I have enough gemstones to bury myself in a Tutankhamun style tomb, and that in respect for the environment, that it is a goal of mine. It's so easy to just go, okay, new collection time. I'm just going to create this gemstone shape and that gemstone shape. And I just got into this sort of like automatic pilot thing of constantly like buying new stones, creating new castings. And I decided that it's a bigger challenge and a more rewarding challenge to work with what I have. So I think that I've decided that my commitment as a jewelry artist is to work with what I have, to work more on being creative with the designs that we already have in place. I mean, I have gazillions of molds from our casting collection and our binding collection, and create things that feel new from all the beautiful pieces that I have. So I would say that's the most exciting thing, is that just not only making this commitment from a perspective of being original, but the perspective of caring for the environment and understanding what my role as an artist is, how it impacts the environment, and wanting to become more sustainable in that fashion and create art that is long lasting and not damaging to the earth. So.
That's great. And finally, Mashka.
Well, when it comes to the industry, the jewelry industry itself, there's always something new happening. but this is a special time, and I've never experienced anything like this, just like so many other artists. And as sad as all of this is, I look at this as winter. And I really am looking forward to spring and kind of to all the new blossoms and new beginnings that will come after we go back to normal life. And I think there is, just based on history and how I feel, I think that desire to create, to do something new, to rebuild, is going to be so strong. So I really think that once this is all over, I'm really looking forward to see this amazing art, amazing jewelry, all these new fashion trends, just to see how our lives will change, how we as designers, as artists will adopt to this, how it will make us grow. I'm really, truly looking forward to the reset in the world and the art world especially.
Thank you, Mashka and Stacy, for providing us with all of this great opportunity to learn more about you both and your incredible work. It is inspiring to know that we have such great local talent here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the DeYoung and Legion of Honor Museum stores are proud to feature your work for our members and visitors. I would like to thank Megan McCauley, Cheyenne Tang, and Rose Burke for your work in making our inaugural Artisan Showcase a success. And to our incredible museum members, thank you so much for your ongoing support of the museum stores at the Fine Arts Museums. The special collections that you saw today from Stacy and Mashka are available from our online store, shop.famsf.org.